Thank you all for coming here to my research talk. So as we were saying, like I will talk about a bit, just give you an idea. I will try to give an idea of different approaches that we are using. Well, it's not working at all. Anyway, it doesn't matter. From different approaches, the slides are way more beautiful than what you see here. Okay, so don't worry. Basically, different approaches that we are using as part of my research, my team, to generate towards a more smarter and sustainable cities. So we are looking at different approaches, from classical smart city approaches, top-down approaches that relies on big data and modeling, to some more unconventional approaches, bottom-up, which have as a primary focus the citizen. So we are looking at ways to gather data. Hi, Oliver. Gather data through citizen science initiatives, but also ways to include the citizens as part of co-design applications, include the citizen in the development of the solutions that we are putting forward to the cities. So first thing, before I even start, I should just a little thank to all the support I'm getting for the actual work from my team and our collaborators, because as the slide says, that we know urban reasoning without all these beautiful brains. At the end of the day, I'll come up with the crazy ideas, and those are the people who will actually make them possible. So whatever I'm presenting in the next slides is most of their work rather than mine. So I'll start with an example. Yeah, this one is not bad. With the first example of this what we call the urban reasoning, what we call of the first example of our approach to produce more sustainable, smarter and more sustainable cities. This is my Icescape project. Is an Horizon 2020 project funded by the Sustainable Challenge topic number 5, which is about climate resilience and sustainable environment. The project has 15 partners, started back actually 1 year ago in September 2016, and will close in August 2019. We have, as I said, 15 partners. Among these partners, we have 6 cities where we are deploying our interventions. And the main focus of these interventions, it's about making cities, is about finding smarter approaches to control air pollution, and so make the cities more environmentally sustainable. This is actually Icescape. I wanted to start with Icescape because it combines both classical top-down approaches, which relies on sensing and modeling, but also bottom-up approaches. So basically, one of the new things that we put forward as part of this Icescape project is basically the use of living labs. We are deploying these living labs in our 6 cities, and we are using them to involve the citizen in the co-design of the interventions. The interventions that we are co-designing are aimed at basically have a positive impact on the air pollution in these 6 test cases. And they are, as I will show you later, they are interventions at different scales from street level to urban level, which would have an impact on the dispersion and emission of air pollutants. Okay, so I don't want to bother you too much with all the details about the intervention. I'll just show you the video that is probably lighter than my voice. So this is just to give you, there is a music in the background, but the cable is not taking it. So just to give you an overview of what we are going to do as part of Icescape. And as you can see, of the nice thing of this Horizon 2020 is that sometimes you get to be a movie star yourself. So. Yeah, so basically it's about implementing these passive control systems, what we call passive control systems, that they are basically urban features that they go from low boundary walls to hedges, trees, green walls, green facades, green areas, and see the effects that they have on air pollution. What we are doing is that, as part of the project, we have to prove to the European Commission how and when, in which particular climatic and urban scenarios our intervention will work. So we have to instrument interventions with sensors, a lot of sensors to monitor them over a long period for different climatic conditions. So at the end of the project, what we are going to do is provide the European Commission with basically a catalog of the performances of our interventions. But as I said, this is mostly a classical top-down approach. So you just go out on the field, you deploy or you model what you want to put forward as an intervention. You instrument the intervention to prove the intervention works, and when you are able to prove it, it will be implemented potentially in future policies for air pollution. But I don't think this is probably, I mean, from a scientific perspective, it's the most interesting part of Icescape, but I don't think it's the most innovative part of our project. Actually, the innovation comes from the bottom-up approach that we are using. As I was saying at the beginning, this bottom-up approach relies on a living lab approach, which is grounded on three principles. It is human-centered, is done in combination with others, and all the interventions are tested on the ground in real-life scenarios. So basically, as I said, as what we noticed in previous projects is that when you just rely on a top-down approach, so you do all your work in a lab or on your computer, then there is the risk that whatever you produce is going to be to stay on a shelf. Nobody's going to use it because probably you don't have the support from the citizen. No one cares about your models. No one cares about what they do, what you are proposing. So that's why, as part of Icescape, we are actually trying to get more support from the bottom. We are trying to go on the streets to explain to the common people what is all this fuss about the low boundary walls, the edges, the trees, what are the benefits that they produce in terms of air pollution. And also we are trying to involve them with other stakeholders as well, with local policymakers, city council, state authorities, and so on, involve them all in the design of our interventions. Okay, this is all a bit blurry, so just to give you more practical example, I'll talk about what we are doing here in Dublin. Okay, here in Dublin, unfortunately, we have actually the most boring intervention to test. It's all about, in Dublin, it's all about low boundary walls. That before I started writing the project, I didn't even know what they were. Basically, it's this piece of urban infrastructure, these little walls that they are usually between, on the perimeters of gardens or between the footpath and the road. It is a very tiny and insignificant and say uninspiring piece of urban infrastructure, but it has an impact in terms of dispersion of pollutants. Basically, for a specific for a range of weather condition, it actually protects the pedestrian from the emissions of the car from the street. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite a hard job to engage the local community to co-design or actually to support this kind of intervention on a wider scale. It's just because it's hard to understand how they work and the benefits that they actually produce. So what we decided to do in order to engage more the citizens is to make it basically more playful, make it more easy to see, to understand, and make it playful. So we went out and bought giant Lego bricks. So the point was we decided to find a way to engage the citizens in the co-design of the low boundary wall and use it as an opportunity to get their feedback. So don't forget, we are trying to use a human-centered approach. So we want to know where they would put the low boundary wall, where they are not going to, this low boundary wall are not going to have an impact on their daily activities. I don't know, probably you've seen several times on the web pictures about design thinking, about creating paths in the parks, and you see people, you have the classical park with an orthogonal, two orthogonal paths, and then you have the people walking across them without using them. So that's a classical example of engage a human-centered approach. If you engage the user of the park in a previous stage, you might have found out it made more sense having the diagonal path rather than the two others. So we are trying to use something similar here, trying to see where they would like to have these walls, what other purposes they would see for these low boundary walls, and so on. And we thought by using a tangible item like the Legos that they be familiar with, it might be a good way to engage them. So while they are playing with the Legos, we just fill them with concepts about air pollution, how the low boundary works, try to explain it and to visualize it. So that's basically, we run some of these activities as part of the UCD Science Festival with the normal Legos, and then this is the first trial we had down here in Sheriff Street in Dublin. So we went out with the Legos and got the kids to play with the Legos, and while they were playing, we told them about the effect that this wall could have on the dispersion of pollutants, and why it was good, and why air pollution is actually a problem in several cities in Europe, and in particular also in Dublin. And I think it was a positive experience. We are trying to do similar, to use a similar approach also in the other 6 cities across Europe. Obviously we are not using, even if it would be my dream, we are not using Legos everywhere. We are trying to mix and match the approaches according to what we are deploying. So as well, we had already some positive impact on future policies. This is a paper that we produced on green infrastructure. Is going to be, is already having an impact on future policies in UK for the design, for the use of green infrastructure for pollution abatement. Same thing for the paper that we produced about low-cost sensors. This one will be the recommended one from DEFRA to choose an environmental sensor to monitor air pollution. And we got quite lucky also with the media. So we went on the Irish Times, BBC, and several European press, magazine, online, and paper. So I think, to be honest with you, I think it's mostly for the unconventional approach rather than for the results, because we got the press even before we started the actual activities on the ground. So the activities, the Living Lab activities, will start this fall. So hopefully, I'm positive we'll get more news in the future, in the following months. That was just to give you an idea of the Icescape project, but as part of my group, we are working at several projects related to sustainable cities, from, as I said, from a top-down and from a bottom-up perspective. So I'll just talk through. Yeah, okay, with time. I'll just talk through quickly the other projects, just to give you some examples. So this is again another top-down approach to smarter and sustainable cities. This is about pervasive sensing. So it's a project that we are running with IBM as part of the the faculty award I recently got, and it's basically about instrumenting cities with low-cost sensors to monitor environmental pollution. So the work is about basically deploying 30, 40 of them in Dublin, and see if we can get a better spatio-temporal picture of the environmental pollution across Dublin City. Okay, this is, I mean, probably you heard like this approach is quite common. Like it's getting more common in smart cities in Europe in the last few years, but it's not as straightforward as you might think. It's not just about deploying the sensors, gather the data, and looking at the data. By deploying so many low-cost sensors, you have to face all of a sudden several issues, which are related to the nature of the sensors. So they are low cost. They cost basically between a tenth and 100 of what the equivalent reference sensor would cost. So one of those units costs around 60 to 80 euro. If you want to have an equivalent unit to measure one pollutant, the unit the Irish EPA would use is in the range of the 20,000 to 25,000 euro per unit. So the point of this unit is that with a small budget, you can cover more space across the city and gather more data, okay? But the problem is that the more units you deploy, the more units you have to collect when you have to recalibrate, which all of a sudden presents a cost in terms of labors. So you have to send people out to collect the units and to recalibrate them. So what we are doing with IBM is looking at algorithms to get these units to calibrate on their own. So it's all about machine learning. It's about putting the unit out with a reference unit for a long time and get the algorithm to learn to calibrate the unit on its own. So that's part of what we're doing with IBM. We are also looking at what we can do with the data if we can use air pollution and noise data as a proxy to learn more about the city. There are basically noise and NOx are a good proxy for traffic. So maybe by measuring that kind of pollution, you can learn more about traffic patterns and usage of different areas of the city at different times during the day. And as well, there are several things that you can do by combining different kinds of data altogether, okay? You can look into different functional areas, the different functions of areas in an urban environment, which would change over the day. So this is important. Let's say if you see that a specific area has different patterns during the day, that could help you also for planning of that area. Maybe it makes sense if it's busy during the day and that during the night, it makes sense to have a shopping center there rather than restaurants. Or maybe you want to revert the pattern. There are several things that you can learn from the data. So that's what is part of this job. This is other work that they are ongoing, more on the spatial analysis side of the work that we are doing. They are related to water quality, air pollution. That's wind energy up in the right. At the bottom is hydrology. So the one at the top left is a water quality model that we produce for the Irish EPA. Is an online tool. Actually, this is an example of a tool that was produced with a lot of effort and never used by the sponsoring body. So it's a tool for the management of wastewater systems. Basically, we produce it for the Irish EPA because I don't know if you know, there are, I think, around 500,000 private houses in Ireland which relies on domestic wastewater system, which cause a lot of pressure on the water pollution in the area. Because I don't know if you've ever seen these septic tanks I saw a picture of some of them. They were some septic tanks were just put together by the house owner, and they are something like old cars sealed with duct tape or something like that. So you can imagine what would happen to the water that the farmer would drink during the day, and the well that is nearby. So this tool is about basically clicking on your house, and the tool will give you the best possible solution in terms of cost to replace your domestic wastewater system with something that's more sustainable. The air quality, that's a model that we produce to model the exposure to air pollution for commuters around Dublin according to the transport mode. Again, a model that we produce for the Irish EPA. The one at the top is about static and dynamic stress on wind turbines according to spatial parameters. And this one is an hydrological model. Basically, it's a water balance model for Ireland according to different climatic and land use scenarios. So it's just to make to see where we would have a water pressure in Ireland if we implement different kind of policies and different urban developments and for different climate change possibilities. Okay, this one is about flood risk. On the top left, earthquakes, bottom, and this is climate change. So for the one at the top left, we are basically mining the data available online from the OPW now, and also from other low-cost sensors that we have around Dublin to see if we can produce alert system for a flood alert system. And the one at the bottom is about it's a GIS model that we produced for some cities in Italy as basically to predict the impact of an earthquake on buildings according to the magnitude of the earthquake. Basically, this kind of tools, these GIS-based tools, as an example, the one for the earthquakes, are useful also for evacuation scenarios. So say that you have an earthquake that is magnitude 5 or 6, or you are assuming you might have that one. You will know that a certain amount of building and specific buildings will fall in that event, and that will help you to see the possible evacuation route in the city. So that's why they are operative tools for cities. That's what we are producing. These are well, I won't run these movies, but basically are other scenarios we made for climatic variable for Dublin and for Ireland. Again, this is more related to the Icescape project. Am I going too slow? I'll just skim through quickly the bottom-up project that we are running at the moment. The one on the left is Connecting Nature, is an Horizon 2020 project run by Trinity College, the Marcus, and it's about basically co-designing a nature-based solution. So it's a buzzword for green infrastructure, if you want. I mean, it's a bit wider than that. But so the project is about co-designing, so with the local communities, this nature-based solution to make cities more resilient to flood risk. So my work in that project is more related to the monitoring, and because whenever you are producing something for the European Commission, you need to be able to prove when and if it works. So my work in this project is about instrumenting all these nature-based solutions with a wide range of sensors to try to understand what are the impacts, the qualitative impacts, so the impacts on hydrological risk, on air pollution, on local climate, but also the quantitative impacts, but also the qualitative impacts, which are the impacts on the local community. So the acceptance of these solutions from the local communities living in the area. So there are ways to do this to see if whatever you are deploying is gathering some attention. There are, I mean, less legitimate ways that they are like providing a Wi-Fi hotspot and see how many people connect to that and gather around the place. There are ways that you can do you can do it with cameras, which will give you nightmares when you go for ethical approval. There are other ways to do it with the proximity sensors and so on. So we are trying to see which one is the best way according to the solution that we are deploying for that project. And also we are looking into circular cities. So trying to see if there are ways to make cities more self-sustainable. So see how and if we can map the resources going in and out the cities and see if we can find replacement within the cities. So to have a lower carbon footprint and so on. But this is something that our new PhD student is just starting now, Nadine. So hopefully she'll be here giving a presentation in December, and we'll learn more, including myself, we'll learn more about this. This is another one. This is an intersection between a bottom-up and a top-down approach. It's a roots project, and it's about basically trying to do something about asthma using a big data approach. So basically, as part of this project, we are instrumenting asthma inhalers with a flick button, which is basically a little button that is connected to the smartphone and will allow you to geotag an asthma episode whenever you are using the inhaler. And the point is basically to link these asthma attacks with the local environment. So what is the local pollution when you're having an asthma attack? What is the local traffic? What is the local weather? And so on. And this is just basically to provide some feedback through an app also to the other users. Because what happens is that whenever and wherever you're having an asthma attack, there is a highly likelihood that another person with asthma would have a similar attack. So by providing this service to other people affected by asthma, you are hoping that they will have less attack, or they would avoid and plan better their movements and avoid the area where the other users had problems. And this is the last one. This is I put that project up there on the top left, even if that was closed a long time ago. It's a project I was involved with during my PhD while I was in MIT. But this is actually the project that started my passion for sensors. So that's why I put it there. And basically, it was about using the spike, the Copenhagen, the spike to monitor the spike that is powered, the Copenhagen wheel is powered by an electric engine, also to monitor environmental pollution and local conditions in cities. Let me see if I can actually, if it works. Well, there is music also here, but the sound is, let's see if I can. No, I'll leave it. No, I'm not going to touch anything. Yeah, here. Well, never mind. It's fine. Anyway, basically, the bike, as you can see, is powered by an electric wheel, if you want. But the good thing is that the bike is fully instrumented with a wide range of sensors, and is providing feedback to the users. The bike user, but also the people belonging to these bike communities, in trying to get them to use the city in a more trying to minimize the exposure of the user to different kind of environmental pollutants. So this project, well, was very interesting. I have to say most of the stuff that we were working at over there didn't work, but at least it gave me like a kind of a scope for future work that we produce as part of a different project. So we tried basically to get what we were trying to do with the Copenhagen wheel to work as part of other experiments we ran as part of a Fulbright award at the bottom right. And basically what we did there is that we produced our own sensing kit. It didn't look as beautiful as the Copenhagen wheel, but at least it worked. And the plan was actually to make the measurement not linked to the users. So trying to go past the single user experience and deploy the sensors as part of bike sharing schemes. Obviously, we came up with a sensing kit that was working. We came up with a design to implement it on the Dublin bikes, but it never happened because whenever it's part of the arrangement Dublin City Council has with the bike sharing scheme, they have no authority over it. So it's hard to put your hands on the bike itself. So the JCDecor, which is the company managing the bike sharing scheme in Dublin, never allowed us to touch the bikes. So unfortunately, it's still there on the shelf waiting to be deployed. But we are doing also some other work with the electric bike, with Rob Shorten in electrical engineering, and see if we can use sensors to optimize the use of the electric engine in the bikes in order to minimize the exposure, and also to see what other data we can gather as part, in collaboration with this company, C-Sense, what other data we can gather from bike. Well, another data that you can gather, the easiest one is data from accelerometers. So think if you can instrument 1,000 bikes with accelerometers, all of a sudden you have an automatic survey of the road oh Jesus, I cannot come with the word. With the roads, an automatic survey of the road surface. So you'll be able to gather in real time where there are potholes, where the road needs maintenance, and this is just by mining accelerometers data. So as you can see, there are a lot of things that you can do, a lot of data you can gather also from sensors that you are using on a daily basis. Like accelerometers, your mobile phone has a triaxial accelerometer on it. So if you just be able to mine that kind of data, there are a lot of potential for these kind of things. Anyway, I'll close it here if I'm able to skip the slide. Yeah, and I'll take the question.